Our population is roughly 65,000. And to your point, it's a good mixture of urban and rural feel. We actually try and convey that this is where big city living meets small town charm. You really do get amenities that often come in a larger community from a retail standpoint, restaurant standpoint, or even just activities that are going on in the community. But you also get a little bit of the quietness and the charm that comes with a small town. And so we're a good mixture of both.
Hello and welcome to The Clear Voice, brought to you by Clear Career Professionals. I'm your host, James Groom. This is a PositionCast episode for the Deputy City Manager role in Victoria, Texas. With me today is a recruiter for this position and retired City Manager Kelly Kuenstler. Kelly, welcome to the show, and we are happy to have you.
Thanks, James. Good afternoon. It's good to be here. Clear Career is always excited when we get to work with the city of Victoria. It's a well-managed city. It's a good council. This particular posting will be a really good opportunity for someone. With that said, I want to introduce the Victoria City Manager, Jesús Garza. Good afternoon, Jesús.
Good afternoon, Kelly. Thanks for having me. James, appreciate having me on as well.
Good to see you.
Absolutely. Jesús, why don't you just start out by telling us a little bit about Victoria, the town? From the times that I've been there and been involved with Victoria's city government, there seems to be a mix of rural and urban demands from the outside looking in. Tell us about the town. Tell us about these demands.
Yeah. Do you have an hour or how long do I have?
We have as long as you need.
I'm just kidding. Well, Victoria, Texas, for those that aren't familiar, is the heart of the Golden Crescent region, located literally right smack in the middle between San Antonio, Houston, Austin, and Corpus Christi. We're really the regional hub for a 7-county area. Our population is roughly 65,000. And to your point, it's a good mixture of urban and rural feel. We actually try and convey that this is where big city living meets small town charm. You really do get amenities that often come in a larger community from a retail standpoint, restaurant standpoint, or even just activities that are going on in the community. But you also get a little bit of the quietness and the charm that comes with a small town. We're a good mixture of both. At the end of the day, Victoria is an urban city. It's just a small urban city. We are a city that has the same urban challenges that any larger urban community might have, except we obviously aren't as big as those communities.
I think one thing that you failed to mention, Jesús, is the fishing opportunities around Victoria.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't get to that part, but there's definitely a good sense of outdoor activities and outdoor life in Victoria. We're nestled right along the Guadalupe River, so there's a lot of activities that take place on the river. We're also not too far away from the coast. To your point, there's some fishing opportunities not too far away. And there's actually quite a bit of hunting that takes place around these parts. And so it's definitely an outdoors-centric community. And that's, I think, part of the small town charm, right? And part of this unique opportunity here that you get some amenities that you normally might find in the larger cities, but you get that quiet environment with not too many things going around that also creates an opportunity to just be in nature, be outdoors, and just enjoy that atmosphere.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's a neat town. I enjoy it. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about the structure of the government in Victoria?
So we're a council manager form of government. We have a 7-member council that includes the mayor and 6 council members. We do have single-member districts as well as 2 super districts. However, I will say that we're in an environment where every single council member makes decisions for the betterment of the entire community. And so we don't really see any geopolitics going on or anything of that sort. And so that makes it very easy to have conversations with them about different challenges and solutions. And there really never is any infighting that takes place amongst them. And so you made a comment earlier about having some political stability. And so we certainly have that within our structure here. I'm actually only the 7th city manager that Victoria has ever had since it became that form of government and since it adopted the city charter. So that speaks to just some of the long tenured city managers that have come before me. I'm coming up on 7 years. And so I'm beginning to continue that trend. And I think that just speaks volumes to our structure and the members that are a part of it. And more specifically, we have a good mix on council right now of experienced council members that have been on for over a decade, as well as a good mix of new council members that, of course, bring in a fresher perspective and fresher voice. They balance each other very well.
And that is such a strong selling point about Victoria. You have stable management, you have a stable council, you have an engaged and informed council. And that honestly for, assistant city managers, deputy city managers, it's a quality that so many applicants are looking for. And you absolutely have that in Victoria. So love it that we're able to post this job. Thinking back on your Victoria team members, how do you all engage the residents in Victoria?
Well, one way we engage the residents is actually through a podcast called Town Talk that I'm actually sitting in the studio of that right now. Our communications team led by Ashley Striebel, they do a great job of reaching out to our community through all platforms. And of course, that includes nowadays platforms like a Town Talk or a podcast, as well as social media. We also are very heavily engaged in different community groups throughout our community. I think it's important that as a leadership team, we, serve on boards and commissions and that we really have a good pulse of what's going on in our community with everything that we do every day. With that comes a really good opportunity to solicit input from the general public, right? As we get involved with different things in our community, as well as just communicate different efforts and initiatives that are forthcoming. And so I think we have a very well-rooted, established system that has communication flowing both ways. We have newsletters that go out and we often communicate to the public that we want them to stay connected with us so that we can obviously connect with them. We do it through a variety of different ways, but there's definitely a really good relationship with the community that helps us, I think, be successful.
That's wonderful because communication leads to trust. And when people have that trust in their city government, it makes all of your jobs easier, doesn't it?
100%. And I can give you a recent example of that. Last May, we had a venue tax on the ballot that, of course, was an increase to the hotel occupancy tax, as well as an addition of a tax on car rentals in our community. That was put on the ballot in May of last year, and that was to support the renovation and expansion of our community center, which is basically like our convention center that we run. Part of that was adding a new arena so that we can host rodeos and just really just expand on those amenities. We received over 65% support for that initiative from the public. And so I think that speaks volumes to just the trust that they have in us as being good stewards of their dollars, as well as just being aligned with vision, right? And I think at the end of the day, who wouldn't want to work in a community where the public and the management team and the elected officials are all flowing in the same direction? And that's where we are right now in Victoria.
Absolutely. That is a rarity. Let's talk about the position a little bit. Is it a new position? How many assistant city managers do you have? Deputy city managers?
So never enough, right? That's always the go-to response, right? For any city manager. But all joking aside, in recent history, the city manager's office was structured as city manager, 2 assistant city managers, and a chief financial officer. I also include our city attorney as part of the executive leadership team, but she, of course, is appointed by council and has her own office. But as it relates to the city manager's office, we had 2 assistant city managers that left last year. And so we promoted 2 individuals internally to those roles, one of which was the CFO. And so the vacancy for the CFO position was created just after further review, after reflection. I didn't think it made sense to backfill that CFO position with a finance-minded individual because we didn't lose Gilbert, who was our CFO and is now our assistant city manager. And so that prompted us to just assess our organization to try and determine, okay, I got this FTE here in my office. How can we best maximize and utilize this position, basically? As we looked around our organization, we realized that we were facing some challenges in the area of continuity of progress. A lot of folks like to use the term succession planning, but I don't think that truly captures the benefit of it. And at the end of the day, the benefit is ensuring and securing that continuity of progress, right? And so like many organizations, we've seen some recent baby boomers retire and others that are scheduled to retire over the next few years. And so in light of all of that, we determined that it would be best to reclassify the CFO position to become a deputy city manager position to help ensure that we continue that progress. And in light of these transitions that have already happened and others that are forthcoming, I think the time is right to reclassify the position to a deputy city manager, bring somebody in to help, be a mentor and really just help us get through these transitions without having a negative impact on all of the progress and other initiatives that we're working on.
And speaking of that somebody that you're going to bring in, what are some specific strengths that you're looking for in that person?
Well, I think to answer that question, I probably ought to elaborate a little bit on, some of the key focus areas that I'm specifically looking for somebody in. And so in looking at our initiatives and projects, there's two that really stand out. One is our investment in public safety. It obviously goes without saying that public safety at the end of the day is one of our core functions and objectives as a municipality. And we're no different. With over half of our general fund budget going towards public safety, we know we can be more intentional with adequately planning for any leadership changes in those departments, but more importantly, just be able to provide better service. We're going through a couple of transitions right now that I think warrant potentially finding somebody with some public safety experience. For example, our police department, fire administration, municipal court, fire marshal's office, 911 dispatch are all now moved into a new 70,000 square foot facility.
It's a beautiful facility.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. I gave some folks a tour just during lunch today. Every time I give it, high praise for that facility. But I think that facility presents an opportunity. For the first time, having these different public safety departments under one roof presents a really unique opportunity for us to just go down a path of a new era of public safety with just improved collaboration. Not that it was bad. It certainly never has been. But obviously now being under the same roof presents opportunities that just didn't exist before. And so I think now would be a good time to bring somebody in to help us develop that plan on what those opportunities ought to be and obviously help us implement them. In addition, we're currently going through establishing civil service and collective bargaining for the first time for our fire department. That was something that passed this last election cycle in November of 2025. And so we're literally right smack in the middle of implementing those two things. That presents an opportunity to possibly, bring in somebody with a public safety background that has some experience in civil service and collective bargaining to really help us ensure that as we continue to implement those initiatives, that we do so in a manner that obviously is cognizant of the importance of our fire department personnel, right? And all of the things that we need to be competitive for retention and recruitment, while at the same time, of course, being mindful of the holistic picture and the reality that we do have other needs with other departments and across the organization. And we, of course, have financial constraints like any other city does as well. And so just somebody that can help us ensure that the implementation of that continues smoothly, I think presents a great opportunity.
It does.
And lastly, on the public safety front, we have a combined Office of Emergency Management with Victoria County. And I think there are opportunities there to lean into that arrangement to just further maximize and expand upon the successes that Rick, who's our emergency management coordinator, has brought over the last several years. I guess I say all that to convey that, one path of interest is finding somebody with a public safety background that can help maximize all these opportunities that I've just verbalized, really just be the head individual for our public safety centric departments. That would be one path. There's a second path that piques my interest. I'd like to see who has some of this experience in economic development. One of our biggest challenges is our lack of growth. We are not close enough to a large metro area like Houston, Austin, San Antonio to where we're really directly benefiting from some of that huge urban sprawl or urban growth that those communities are experiencing. We truly are our own independent region. We have our opportunities and our challenges, and we certainly historically have grown, but not to the pace that I think we need to grow in order to ensure some financial sustainability, as well as ensure that we continue offering some great quality service, not only with public safety, but with our parks and everything else. And so we launched a Growing Victoria initiative a couple of years ago to just be more intentional with investing and spending our energy and money and things that are going to help us grow. We know that there's a direct correlation between population growth, tax-based growth, and obviously available funding that we have to invest in the needs that our community has. If we don't start to grow at a faster rate, we will face some challenges. We just had our first Growing Victoria Summit, which was a combined effort with the mayor's State of the City speech, in which he conveyed, the importance that, our educational institutions play in our growth trajectory, as well as just our community itself. We need to all be rowing in the same direction. And so under the mayor's leadership, this Growing Victoria initiative is gaining more momentum, and more of our initiatives are focused and centered around growth. There's also some good opportunities here to potentially also explore bringing somebody with an economic development background that can help take that initiative to the next level.
Right.
And just to help us continue down this more aggressive path of growth. As part of that, we are also exploring ways to further maximize our Type E Economic Development Corporation. This, like many others across the state, was established in the mid-90s, but hasn't quite been maximized to the extent that other communities have maximized their Type B economic development corporations. I think finding somebody with experience running a Type B or a Type A, or just having experience running a Type B, I think would be very beneficial to our efforts to just continue to maximize the utilization of our existing Type B. I say all of that to convey, of course, that there's also a path here for somebody with an economic development background that can help just us continue moving the needle, in that regard with our Type B, and then as well as just our overall growth efforts and initiatives.
So let me ask you this, because those are two very different disciplines. As you and I discussed, we talked about this position and advertising it. What if I'm an applicant with a very strong background in public safety, yet maybe only dabbled in economic development, or vice versa? Would you still be interested in my application?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not looking for somebody that has both. I want to be very clear about that. The objective here is to find somebody that fits in either one of those pathways, because I do think that it's important to find somebody to bring in that complements, my strengths, my weaknesses, but also complements the strengths and weaknesses of our other members of the executive leadership team.
Exactly.
That's why the focus on either two of those areas.
Perfect.
But certainly not looking for somebody that's got both. Obviously, that'd be great, right?
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, but I recognize that people have their career paths and they have their experiences.
Sure.
That's why the focus on either one of those.
Makes sense. How many authorized FTEs does the city of Victoria have right now?
We have 656.
656. And what is your total operating budget?
$255 million for fiscal year 26. And I will say that we are a full service city in that we run our water and wastewater utility, and we also own our landfill. We also run residential trash pickup. The only thing that we really outsource, if you will, is commercial waste pickup and then the running of the actual landfill. But outside of that, our employees are, running the wastewater treatment plants, the surface water treatment plant, and we also have and run our CBB. I know a lot of communities sometimes outsource their tourism initiatives to a chamber of commerce or to some other entity. So we do that in-house as well. So full service city. We got a lot going on.
Yes, you do. If I'm the successful applicant to be your next deputy city manager, what are some of the basic expectations that you're going to have for me?
Well, basically that you solve all the world's problems.
Good luck, Jesus.
By the end of the year. No, but, as I was alluding to earlier, we want to ensure continuity of progress. And so for us, that's very important. There's one thing that we don't like is, stagnation, right? Because when you're stagnant, you're really going backwards. At the end of the day, it's a very competitive environment that we're in because we're competing for talent, right? We're competing for public safety personnel. We're competing for businesses. We're competing for investment. And so we need to just have that continuous improvement, not only operationally, but transformationally with different initiatives that are going on in the community. And so the clear expectation is that we continue that trend. There will be external factors that dictate pace, right? Things that we can't control, whether that is, a pandemic or whether that's a hurricane or whether that's just whatever. But at the end of the day, there's definitely going to be a high expectation that we continue this momentum in either area, whether that be public safety improvements and enhancements or economic development and growing our community.
Right. How is Victoria managing workplace turnover right now while still providing, top level services? I know a lot of cities are struggling with that right now.
Well, by hiring you to help, right, with the vacancies, by filming this podcast, right? Hopefully somebody watches this and thinks, man, this guy's cool. I want to go work with this guy. In all seriousness, we recognize that employees have a choice. They have a choice of where to work. And I say every month in our new employee orientation that, that's a responsibility that we take very seriously because they're choosing us to be their work family, right? With that comes a responsibility to ensure that our employees have all the tools and the resources that they need to be successful, that they have an environment that they can thrive in, that they look forward to coming to work in, right? And so we take a lot of pride in our work culture, our work environment, and we think that paired with offering competitive compensation can work wonders for us. And we're actually already seeing some of that in our public safety departments. specifically with the police department. We were talking about them moving into this brand new state-of-the-art public safety headquarters facility.
Right.
We're already seeing huge improvements in our retention challenges as well as our recruitment efforts. As an example, historically, we've sponsored about half a dozen students through our local police department that Victoria College puts on. This next class is hovering around 18 students.
Wow.
The only thing that's changed from the last class to this upcoming class is the move to the new building. We implemented a more competitive compensation pay program in October at the beginning of this fiscal year. And we have a new police chief that rose from the ranks. And I think having a police chief that has come up the ranks has made a huge impact to just morale, because of course the rapport that he has with our personnel, the embedded confidence and trust that he's built over the years, not only with our personnel, but with the community. There's just a lot of benefit that has come with that as well. And so I think that's a really good microcosm example of what we're trying to achieve holistically to address these challenges. It's also not lost on us that every department has their own different set of challenges. And each department or division's got to be looked at a little bit differently because our competitors are different. With public safety personnel, I'm not competing with local private businesses for those individuals, right? But I am competing with local businesses for administrative support, for finance staff, for communication professionals, right? For everybody else. And so we need to be mindful of who we're competing against so that we can develop strategies individualized for each functional area to ensure that we are being as successful as we can be in this environment that we're in today.
I think you are as well. I've sat in on a couple of directors' meetings, and I do agree with you. You all create a nourishing environment, an environment that sets people up to thrive and to grow. I can't compliment you and the executive team enough, because you definitely feel that when you sit in on your meetings.
Well, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about Victoria's strategic priorities?
Sure. So we still fall under our most recent comprehensive plan, which was adopted almost 10 years ago. And I know that a lot of communities update those plans every 5 years, but in our particular case, that plan is still very relevant. That plan, called Victoria 2035, outlines some very specific strategic areas in the areas of public infrastructure, economic development, quality of life enhancements, and development patterns, if you will, and growth. What we've done over the last 7 years is taken each of those and basically developed individualized strategic and master plans for relevant categories. So for example, in 2021, we adopted a downtown master plan that ultimately led to, a $6 million expansion and renovation of our downtown plaza that is as hugely successful. We also adopted our parks master plan in 2021 that led to the renovation of a duck pond that we have in Riverside Park. It led to our first official dog park as well. Those are a couple of examples, but we've also gone down the path of developing drainage master plans, facilities master plans. We have an economic development strategic plan that we hired Newmark to do for us a few years ago. And so because we have these strategic priorities that we've taken a deep dive in with these additional master plans and implementation plans, we still have a long ways to go to implement the recommendations from these various plans. That's why we haven't necessarily gone back to address that original 2035 comp plan, because there's still a lot of work to be done in those areas that I reference.
If it's still relevant, it's still relevant.
100% it's still relevant. Absolutely. And I think one reason why it's still very relevant is the fact that we're not seeing this huge influx of growth in our community that's affording us the ability to be very strategic and very smart about how we invest in enhancing these areas, because we're not having that pressure that some of the larger cities have. So for example, we've invested a historic amount of money over the last 5 years in our street infrastructure, where we literally have invested more money in street improvements over the last 5 years by more than 50% compared to the previous 5-year window. That's allowing us to catch up with deferred maintenance issues on streets in a way that is meaningful, because we don't have the pressures of new streets that are being added constantly to the suburbs or through sprawl. That's one of the biggest reasons why our plan and different plans we have are still very relevant, because our conditions are relatively the same as they have been over the last 10 years, and we're just plugging at it.
It just speaks stability in my mind. I think just conversing with you this last 20 or 30 minutes or whatever gives us a little bit of an idea about your management and leadership style. But for the applicants out there, what else would you like them to know about your management and leadership style?
That's a great question. I plead the fifth. I'm just kidding. I'd like to think that we have a very transformational leadership approach to what we do every day, very mission driven. I think that's very important. As a leader, I can't expect, individuals to go above and beyond if they don't subscribe to or believe in the mission and the vision that we have set forth. I'd like to think that we've done a great job of establishing that vision and that mission over the last 5 to 7 years. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of results. There's definitely a big part of me that is driven by that, by mission, by vision, by purpose. And I'd like to think that that comes across in my day-to-day management and leadership approach. I also think that as I become more experienced in the profession, I've become, I think, more mindful of preparing that next generation of leaders and how can we mentor, how can we prepare, how can we develop a bench strength, not only with our own organization, but just how do we just develop our individuals to reach whatever goals they have, regardless of whether they're with us or not. I could definitely spend more time focused in that arena, but that's definitely something that drives me every day, is to empower and to help mentor and educate our workforce, our executive team. And that also falls in line with why we're looking for an experienced deputy, because I could certainly use the help in that regard as well. So I'm hoping to find an experienced practitioner in either public safety or economic development that could also help with that approach.
Right. Wonderful. Good answer. I'm an applicant and I'm curious, what do I need to do to prepare for my semifinalist and my finalist interviews? What would you tell me? What would you tell me to focus on?
Definitely do your research. We're always very impressed by individuals that take the time to do the research and already walk in with some familiarity with what's going on and the challenges and the issues and the different master plans and strategic plans that I reference. Those are all available online. And so I think definitely individuals that do their homework, they really stand out to us. That sends a positive message to us that people are truly interested and truly care. And I think that also helps hopefully get individuals excited about the opportunity, because hopefully they see the potential that our community has to just continue to build upon the successes that we've had in these areas of public safety or economic development. I hope that doing that research and doing that homework, not only provides them an opportunity to potentially stand out during the interview process, but quite frankly, hopefully helps excite them and get them even more motivated about this possibility to join our team.
I agree. I believe the applicant that does their research and really kind of digs into Victoria, of course, it's going to create a great interview, but I don't see how it could not help but create some enthusiasm for the position as well.
Yeah, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. Jesús, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close out this position podcast for the Victoria Deputy City Manager?
Yeah, just a few things, if you don't mind. I think going back to, your original question about describing Victoria, I think it's important to also convey that there's some positive momentum happening in other areas that I think are very relevant to just the future of our community. Our university here in Victoria is now part of the Texas A&M system. We're the 12th institution now under the system, Texas A&M Victoria. That change just happened literally just in the fall. And so we now, under the leadership of President Hardigree, are headed down the path of some pretty significant growth for this university that obviously contributes to the workforce development aspect of our community, but also helps bring in students, professors, faculty, you name it, to our community. And so we're very excited about the future of the university. That complements Victoria College very well. We have a very, very successful community college in our community that, under the leadership of Dr. Kent, is really doing an excellent job of preparing our workforce. Those two things combined, and then some of the work that our public schools are currently working on. They have a bond coming up that all communications I've had with the public and stakeholders convey that that'll be a successful bond passage. Reinvesting of over $200 million into our public schools, I think, is huge for our community. And of course, we're continuing to invest in our own facilities. I mentioned the 70,000 square foot public safety headquarters facility. Soon we'll be breaking ground on a close to $40 million renovation and expansion of our community center. And over time, we plan on investing more in our own facilities, which obviously has a direct impact on the delivery of service, with our parks and everybody else. Our library, for example, has its own master plan too. I can talk about this stuff all day, but I think it's important to just convey some of these examples so that those who are tuning in can get a better sense of the holistic picture of what's going on in our community as well as our organization. Because I will say, it may be very biased, but it's an exciting time to be in Victoria, an exciting time to be part of just the development of the future of this community. And so anybody that has that intrinsic motivation, driver of trying to make a difference while being practitioners of their areas, this is a great opportunity for that.
I think it is too. And when I announced to my partners at Clear that we were going to do this one, everybody feels the same way, that it's a great opportunity for somebody and a great place to work. So kudos to you, the city council, and your team for that. We're going to do our best to help you get the right person for this position in Victoria. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is on the brochure. I'd love to talk to you a little bit about Victoria.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time, Kelly. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, guys. Jesus and Kelly, thank you for being on and sharing information about this role. If you're interested in the Deputy City Manager opportunity in Victoria, Texas, you can find more information on our website at clearcareerpro.com under Career Opportunities. To the listeners, thank you for what you do every day in your communities. Please like and subscribe to The Clear Voice, and we will catch you next time.